We're going to look at a second aspect of the human person that points to this receptivity to knowledge of God and to revelation. This one is admittedly a little more abstract. It uses language we don't tend to use. It's a little more difficult to get our minds around. So I really invite you to pay close attention, try to follow the line of argumentation here, and see if you can't discern the main points as we go. But this is the idea that comes from Karl Rahner, the 20th century Jesuit theologian, and the transcendental aspect of all experience. Now we're going to take this kind of step by step, but here's a good summary of where we're going. It's the idea that in every particular experience of something, no matter what that is, if I'm experiencing a sunset, or a cricket, or a ballpoint pen, it doesn't matter. In every particular experience of something, we concurrently at the same time experience not only ourselves as the one experiencing it, but also our openness to an unlimited horizon of being. And that's the key idea here we're going to want to narrow down on. And the next several slides are going to go through this, that we're open when we know something or experience something, we're open to something beyond that individual thing, this unlimited horizon of being. So we'll look at that idea. In any specific experience of knowing, of willing, of acting, there's also a universal aspect and an absolute spiritual horizon, which is God. So again, the idea is standing behind any particular experience I have is this universal aspect, or this absolute spiritual horizon. Hence, and here's the conclusion, every concrete experience that we have also means experiencing ourselves, and more to the point here, God. So that means, and we'll see this as we go, that the experience of the sunset or the cricket or the ballpoint pen includes within itself, in this view, some sort of experience of God. Implicit, what we would say is unthematized, unreflective, but it's still present in some way. So in all our activity, God is revealed and we are revealed to ourselves. In all our activity, God is revealed. So what this is suggesting is going beyond what we saw in the last video. It's not simply particular experiences that suggest our openness to God, to knowledge of God, and to revelation, but it's in fact all of our experiences stand open to God and actually are implicit experiences already of God. So let's try to walk through this kind of step by step and talk about this horizon of unconditioned being. So the idea here is that the human subject, you and I, displays an openness and a tendency towards an ultimate horizon of unconditioned being, or being itself. That furthest limit which circles and encloses all of our particular experiences. Well, what does that mean? The idea here is that against such a horizon of unconditioned being, that's where we experience some particular being, or grasp some specific meaning, or know this particular truth and desire some specific good. The background to those specific particular examples of knowing and willing, the background to that is this broader horizon or ultimate horizon of unconditioned being. Within such a horizon, we also know, albeit in an unthematized and unreflective way, ourselves as subject with our finitude and relativity. So one way to get around this idea of an ultimate horizon is to say, what do you see here? And instinctively, I would hope you say purple circle, right? We have a purple circle. But the only way that we can affirm the purple circle is because of the white horizon behind it. Now, notice on this slide, you would say there's nothing there. But in fact, there is. there is a white circle. You just can't differentiate it because it blends into the horizon. So if I go back to our purple circle, notice that when you affirm or have the experience of the purple circle, you also implicitly have an experience of the white background. And even if I ask you, what is this? And you don't say purple circle on a white background, by simply saying purple circle, you are implicitly affirming the white background. Even if you don't notice it, it's unthematized, it's unreflective, it's implicit, but it has to be there in order to affirm the purple circle, because otherwise you would simply have this. You have to differentiate the object that you are knowing by its background. Now, what all of this has been saying, though, is that in knowing any particular thing, we might know it according to the background behind it, but those are just particular things that we also can know, and so on and so forth. But the idea is that the human intellect stands open to all of these particular things. So what's the ultimate background that all of these particular beings stand in front of? Right? All of particular beings don't stand in front of a white screen. The ultimate background for all particular beings is being itself, is ultimate, unlimited being. So that's what this slide before was trying to get at. We have an openness and tendency towards an ultimate horizon behind all conditioned particular things. The ultimate horizon that stands behind them all and puts them all in relief is unconditioned or absolute being. Against that horizon of ultimate being, we experience all those particular things or those particular goods. So if you're with me so far, the rest of it should somewhat flow. This ultimate horizon being is not one determined object among others. It's not just another cricket or ballpoint pen. That can't be the ultimate horizon to all of our knowledge. Knowing it is not just one more instance of knowledge in general. It's not just one more thing I can categorize. It's there as an unthematized and unreflective element. I can't perfectly objectify it because, unlike the ballpoint pen or the cricket, there's nothing standing behind that ultimate horizon by which I can categorize it or which sets it apart. It's being itself. So where I can get my mind around particular things because of that ultimate horizon, I can't do that same thing with the ultimate horizon itself. That means even when through subsequent reflection it becomes the object of explicit attention, when I turn my mind to that ultimate horizon, it can never be totally and adequately thought through and objectivized. Right? It can't become just another object in the world because it stands behind the world as the condition through which I know all of those particular things. So this Rahner calls a transcendental experience. The human subject enjoys a transcendental experience of this horizon. In the sense, what does that mean, transcendental? In the sense that the experience of that horizon goes beyond any particular acts of knowing and willing. It's not this here and now act, it stands behind or it transcends all particular acts of knowing. This horizon not only transcends all specific acts as acts, but also does not depend upon this or that particular content. It's there in an absolute way. Hence, the experience of this horizon can be called transcendental. It's in every experience, behind every experience, if only implicitly. The ultimate horizon is always affirmed, even if implicitly, even in the explicit act of denying it. Right? This is kind of a paradox, that in denying it, the very ability to make that affirmation, that experience, requires that ultimate horizon to stand behind it. So that ultimate horizon is the condition for the possibility of all of our experiences. The ultimate horizon is the a priori, that is before any experience. That ultimate horizon is the a priori condition for the possibility of any human experience, right? Just as I could not see the purple circle without the white background to contrast it, I cannot have genuine human experience of knowing and willing without that horizon of ultimate being standing behind as the condition for that possibility. When, for instance, some specific act of knowing occurs, like when I know the ballpoint pen or the cricket, that is because there already exists a knowing subject oriented toward this horizon. As the absolute fullness of being, meaning, truth, and goodness, this absolute horizon is to be identified with God. Now there's a little leap, a little jump. But notice, what is that horizon? It's the background to all particular being, or all particular goods, or all particular truths, all particular meanings. And therefore, that horizon, which is the condition for all of those things, is the absolute fullness of that. And that's what we mean by God, the absolute fullness of being, meaning, truth, and goodness. This transcendental experience, therefore, is a transcendental revelation. So he says, hence we can speak of transcendental experience as transcendental revelation. This is the primordial form of God's self-communication. In the transcendental aspect of every particular experience, we encounter the divine mystery and God's saving presence, even if this dimension of the experience is not explicitly reflected upon. And most often, it's not. And for some people, it never is. The idea is God stands behind all human experience as a necessary condition for that human experience. Hence, the so-called proofs for the existence of God in philosophy are not ways that lead us to know and experience God for the first time, but are really secondary reflections on our basic transcendental experience of God in all things. This is what Rahner will call the supernatural existential. That is, the divine self-communication involved in this transcendental experience is a gratuitous, supernatural gift from God. It is a gift from Him that we have it at all. If it is there in the actual order of things, it's not something owed to us, right? Rahner brings together these two elements in his notion of the supernatural existential. On the one hand, transcendental experience is a reality of human existence as we know it, universally. That's the existential part. It's built into our existence. On the other hand, the divine self-communication is a grace which does not belong to the natural human condition. That's the supernatural element. We all have this supernatural existential. This is the openness towards the divine. This openness towards God's revelation, or this experience of God's revelation for Rahner, is built into us by God in all of our experiences. So when we ask about our a priori or antecedent openness to God, Rahner would say it's there present in every truly human action. This means God is known to all persons in some way, as the ultimate horizon needed to create the possibility for any experience. God is known to every human person. Whether or not they realize this consciously and accept it willingly, all human beings receive the transcendental experience of God's primordial self-communication. It's universal amongst human persons. This self-communication sets up the conditions for men and women to decide consciously for or against God. This is to say that really this transcendental experience, or this transcendental revelation by which God is present to us in an unreflective way, that's what makes our response to God possible, or even our reception of special revelation. Through the transcendental experience of God, He is closer to me than I am to myself, to use the words of St. Augustine. That means that this is preparation for special or historic revelation, or the revelation in Jesus Christ. Finally, transcendental experience or revelation establishes the presupposition and condition for receiving divine revelation or supernatural revelation and salvation in the specific forms of historical existence. Above all, through the historical experience of Israel and the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So again, we're looking at this question of the conditions for the possibility of knowledge of God, of openness for revelation. And where we previously looked at certain human conditions, this is pointing us to the idea that all human experience is an experience of openness to God, in fact, of God himself, even if not averted to or recognized explicitly. What we'll turn to next time is maybe something slightly more concrete than this, and that is the notion of the natural desire for God placed in each one of us as an openness to God and to revelation.